Hi. Okay, can everyone hear me? Yeah. Good? All right, great. So I started a school. It was kind of an accident. It's just like all good things in life are. If you turn around, a bunch of our students and staff, who we call coaches, are in the back. So Lucas, you're going to see yourself up here. Just heads up. Okay. So this is our schoolhouse. Space of Mind is a modern schoolhouse for our social world. What does that mean exactly? It means we're redefining school. We are a social homeschool program, which, don't let the word homeschool fool you. Our kids come to us full time. We have just expanded down to elementary school, and we have been middle and high school. And we are actually right across the street in Delray's oldest building. It was built in 1896. So when this presentation is finished and we all get up and leave, you're all welcome to come by for a quick tour. We're literally right next to Dada across the street. So anyway, so I started a school. It was not my plan. Yulia and Nicole and Amber had asked me for a quote to kind of summarize my entrepreneurial experience and motivation, and I've genderized it for myself, but so this quote, the ultimate measure of a woman is not where she stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where she stands at times of challenge and controversy. Those challenge, controversy, convenience, all of that's all part of my story. This hasn't been easy. I didn't start a coffee shop, and I couldn't go sit in Starbucks and figure out how they did it. I started with kind of a rough idea and a little bit of a plan, but not a big one, and a lot of balls. So basically, how did this happen? Oh, TJ, you're in here too. So the chaos theory is really pretty much how it happened. I grew up in South Florida, in Boca. I'm a product of public education, and at the time that I grew up, public education was very different. I also grew up, I was lucky when I was a little kid in second grade and they put all I got put into public school. I tested into the gifted program, and that's where I found my people. And by my people, I mean all the ADDers. So now, if you're diagnosed with ADD, you're given a whole other set of circumstances and labels, and it's a different situation. But back then, we were all rewarded for our creativity and given leadership opportunities and collaborative opportunities. And the way we worked was similar to the way you guys probably work in a creative economy. And we learned how to run a think tank in third grade. So the skills that I learned in those years and getting to grow up with the continuity of the relationships with my teachers who I had for multiple years, and with my friends in that class who we stayed together and are still friends thanks to Facebook, that program gave me the courage to not be afraid to fail, first of all, which was the first lesson I learned in school, and also to recognize that collaborating and bonding through creativity was a really huge way to succeed. That program doesn't really exist in that form anymore. So when I was looking for kind of the model of what needed to happen, I was turned to my experiences growing up. And what we do at Space of Mind is very much all about creativity and collaboration and real world experience. But it was a total accident. I had some really random career experience. I opened a whole bunch of cheesecake factories around the world, or around the country rather. I was training trainers in the Cheesecake Factory, and those are non-traditional learners. I was really good at that, so that was kind of a fun gig, and then too many years in the restaurant industry, I wasn't sleeping enough. So somehow my resume landed at Rational Software, which at the time was the world's largest software development company. They're now part of IBM, but during the golden years that I was there at the height of the tech boom, it was a really exciting time, and I was working with these brilliant developers who were using both sides of their brain equally, which was super inspiring. Creativity and logic working in tandem. And Rational was the company that created the unified process that's universally used for software development. And so one day I'd always been involved in youth programming and education sort of in a non-traditional way, and I had been tutoring some kids that were dealing with a lot of stress and test anxiety on the side. And one day I was sitting in my office and staring at the poster of the Rational Unified Process, and testing is like the most important phase of the development process. They want the product to fail, and I just found that to be a really great metaphor for what was wrong with school. In school, teachers today, teachers generally, they'll hand back a test and someone didn't do well and they just move on. No teacher ever says, hey, you missed these questions, can we sit down and let me teach you what you're missing here? And I just found that the way that software development worked, as soon as they release one product, they're already working on the next product. There's never an expectation of perfection. And parenting and education has completely missed that. And we're churning out kids now that are not ready for the world of global commerce that we're creating and that we all live in a creative economy. So my parents were like, we sent you to Brandeis to be a rabbi and you're working in restaurants and now you're like writing about how software is changing the world. And then I left and I was running this really cool designer clothing consignment shop in Harvard Square for a little while. And they were like, what are you doing and how are you going to pay your student loans? And I just kept saying, like, I'll figure it out. Like, there's some reason I'm on this random path and I'm just doing stuff that speaks to me right now. So I did land in this consignment shop at kind of a transitional point in my life, and because I could sense things that in the corporate world were changing, which they got bought by IBM shortly after I had left. And I was working with women specifically who were dealing with closet clutter. So that was sort of the transition that after a few years of just building that business up, I came to South Florida. I figured I'll just do this here. There was no consignment economy down here. So I came down and I was really working with people in coaching them through their closet clutter. But that grew, and then I was working with hoarders and CEOs with ADD and their type A assistants and busy moms who couldn't figure out how to organize their families. And it was crazy, and it got really exciting and a little bit bigger than I had planned. So after a few years, I picked one lane, which I'm sure everyone in business has heard before. You have to pick one lane. And I picked the one that spoke to me the most, which was dealing with families who are living with school-related stress. So that's how this happened. I was working with families around the dinner table and watching them kind of fall apart, and was getting frustrated because I was going into schools and there was no mechanism in the school for the teachers or the guidance counselors or the ESC specialists to take this information that was, here's what's working in the home, how can you implement it at school? So I'm a problem solver, and I figured out that there was no school to send these kids who were waking up and not wanting to go to school to. And so we started with 3 kids in my living room. So that's how that happened. So we're in our 7th year now. And basically, this is sort of also a metaphor for ADD, but the logo for Space of Mind is a burst of exclamation points, and the whole idea of schooling in this way is that we want to find focus, right? In the end, that's what we're all looking for. But you have to have excitement, because if you're not excited about where you're going and what you're doing, you're probably not going to show up or even do your best. And then sometimes we get overexcited because we're really stimulated and really passionate about what we're doing. And the way that we channel all of that is by doing what you love. So in a day, on average, at Space of Mind, the kids are engaged in all kinds of real world things, gardening and yoga and meditation and cooking and fitness and obviously academics, entrepreneurship, as you experienced this morning. So we started, like I said, with 3 kids in my living room. That was my kitchen and the house that I was living in at the time. And I still to this day can't believe that 3 families wrote me a check and were like, here, your idea sounds great. So anyway, luckily it all worked out. But the idea was that we'll do some academics and we'll do some life skills and we'll have a good time and we'll see what happens. So that's how that happened. So Lucas, is he still back here? Do you remember this list? So when Lucas, so my moment of inspiration came in I think it was our 2nd year, the end of our 2nd year when Lucas joined us. Because in the beginning we were using online curriculum. It was a safe way to transition into what we were doing. It wasn't what I wanted to do, of course, but it was safe. Lucas joined us, and he was 9, and he's now in 9th grade. And I asked him, what do you want to learn about? Like, what if you could learn about anything in school, what would it be? And he wrote me this list on a Post-it note, and I still have it. And it inspires me all the time because he chose really awesome stuff, right? Like the universe, fours, fabric, technology, biology, geometry, animation, culinary arts, drawing and painting, and architecture. His spelling's improved, by the way. But we teach all of those things, and we now write all of our own curriculum. My team spends every summer collaborating the whole summer long, writing curriculum that's customized to what our students want and need to learn. And that's really awesome to be able to lead a team of educators who actually have autonomy and opportunities for creativity, and for me now to sit back and feel like it's getting done and I'm not wearing all the hats anymore is really cool. So then we have teachable moments. So we teach life skills. We have cleanup every day. The kids get their cell phones back at the end of the day once the jobs are all done. And so my favorite teachable moment was how to not use the dish soap in the dishwasher. Luckily, I had come back to school that night to pick something else up and found literally suds all over the place. But the kids, actually this picture is one of our first students. One of the best lessons I learned opening cheesecake factories was all of the new store trainers. This was not our home store. We were coming in to train the people that were going to be in that home store. We were given toothbrushes by the CEO, and we were given cleaning supplies, and we were the ones who cleaned that store before that store's employees came in. And that always stuck with me as being really important, that it wasn't going to be our home store, but we had invested in what it looked like. So literally, the Cambridge store in Boston, I cleaned the bathroom with a toothbrush on the floor, which ended up ironically being my home store a few years later. But when we moved into our building, the kids actually did that, the first batch of kids. They cleaned that building top to bottom, and it became their home. And for the kids who join us throughout the year, it is their home away from home. So this is a funny story. We had 2 students a few years ago. One was younger in middle school. I think he was probably about 6th grade, and one was a high school student. I think she was probably 10th grade. And they'd had a fight, because that happens. And I let the older student know that her homework assignment was to come in the next day and figure out an activity to do with the younger student to get to know each other and to solve your problem. And so she went home, she worked at Moe's, and she brought in the next day a bunch of giant cardboard boxes, and she's like, we're gonna build a fort. And so the 2 of them spent the morning and they built a fort in our sun porch area. And by the end of the building process, they were laughing and having a blast, and then they sat and worked in that fort for their academics for the whole week until it fell apart. So anyway, so there's Lucas again. He's still just as cute. So of course, like all of you, there's rough moments in my business. I've wanted to quit it more than a few times. Have any of you ever wanted to quit your business? Yeah. So I've even written the letter to the parents and the kids saying, I'm so sorry, I can't do this anymore. But then that's just like a moment, and then the moment passes. But the truth is that it's hard. It's hard every day to show up and to be present and to wear all the hats. I'm not just wearing an educator hat, I'm wearing a business owner hat and a conflict resolver and sometimes a nurse and there's all these hats. And managing the emotions of all of that is hard. Managing my own balance in life has been hard. I think I've gotten a lot better. I now take the weekends off, so that's good. But every time I have that moment, and I haven't had one recently, guys, don't worry, but every time I have that moment, I think about these moments. I think about the moments where I could cry now that our kids are doing what we asked them to do. and they're learning what we're teaching them, and it's working. It doesn't work every minute of every day, of course, but there are moments in every day if you look for them, and sometimes they just slam you in the face and they're big and you just can't help but be excited. But these moments are the ones that obviously make me tear up the letter. And then, of course, it's all about the big moments of gratitude. I have an amazing team. We could not do what we do if we didn't love each other as much as we do. We're very competitive, so we play together, we have fun together, we work really, really hard. We actually yesterday got to celebrate. We made the top 10 in the South Florida Business Journal's Best Places to Work, which is pretty cool. So every day I wake up and I have many moments of gratitude for what they bring to the table and what we're able to accomplish together. And at this point, the show is more theirs than mine. And my job is to be the firefighter and to, make sure everybody has what they need. So it's really without my team, we couldn't be doing what we're doing. So I think that was my last moment. And then my call to action for you guys is to just focus on what you love, because if I didn't love what I did, I would have sent the letter. But you have to do what you love, and because I do that, it doesn't feel like work. The days can be long, but they're really fun and they're rewarding. And so that's what we teach our students, and that's what I hope that you could take away from what I've shared today. And I think that's the last one, right? So yeah, thank you.